Questions. We have tons of them. What if some of those questions can be answered with a simple email? Now is that time, and welcome to Chat with Charlie. Host Stephanie Lynn is a certified spiritual life coach and psychic medium. She will work together with Spirit to answer both your submitted and live questions. Not only will Stephanie be providing you with insight, but also interviews with amazing guests. Now, your host of Chat with Charlie, Stephanie Lynn.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to WLTK-DB, Let's Talk Radio, where you are joining the Chat with Charlie show. I'm really excited today, and I really just want to jump into the topic of today and tell you about our guest today. If you were here a few weeks ago, you certainly remember the amazing Kim Coots. She is so many things. She's just really what drew her to me, and I want to tell you about that before we get into all the amazing things that Kim is her energy. It is her approach in so many things, and how she works with people. It's that mind, body, and spirit support, right? That's how Kim views this. It's the mind, body, and spirit support. She is a certified grief coach, an evidential medium, a spiritual healer. And what's awesome is she came from the business world, right? She came with this very logical mind. She came in with this skepticism and went through all of these life changes to lead her onto the spiritual path. And we got to talk about all these amazing accomplishments and her journey last time she was here. If you missed that episode, I really hope you will go back and check that out. But today, she's here to discuss with us astrology, right? And I always say I am the world's worst psychic medium because I'm horrible at following moon phases and retrogrades. And hi, Courtney. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm so horrible at following those things. And I never really sat down and took time to understand astrology. And so Kim is coming in today with my chart, right? So we are going to learn things about myself together, but things about astrology, how astrology can be a tool to give us insight and to help us heal. So with that, please help me welcome the amazing Kim Coots back to our show. Hello. How are you?
I'm so good. So glad to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me back.
I loved our time together last time. I love your energy. And I'm just, right, I think we get on the spiritual path, hi, Lynn, where we want to fill our minds with and educate and so much knowledge. And so I'm really excited about today's topic.
Me too. And I had so much fun learning about you through your chart. So first of all,
scared.
I want to say thank you.
I'm actually scared about that part. I'm excited about the rest.
Well, thank you so much for letting me kind of deep dive into getting to know you. And I'm so excited to share. I have lots of stuff to share, so I'm going to try to really keep it to highlights.
Okay.
I can go on for quite a while. I know we're trying to share your chart so people can see it, but
yes,
if we can't, that's okay too.
Yeah, and I know you're working on that backstage, but before we deep dive in, what is astrology? Can you tell our viewers a little bit about when you're putting a chart together? What do you look at? Where do you pull the information from?
Well, first of all, I want to say astrology is way more than just your sun sign or your zodiac sign or your horoscope that you would read in the paper or online. I actually got into it because I love psychology. Wow. And I had a group of businessmen who were raving about this astrologist to help them with their entrepreneurship. Interesting. So I have to look into this woman. So I ended up joining her astrology school. She's a psychologist, but she's a world-renowned astrologist as well.
I love
so
it.
She kind of ties the psychology part of it. And I was so attracted to what she was doing. So I signed up for her school, and I ended up going through all 3 levels and becoming a professional astrologist through it. But what I love about it is it's really like a divine blueprint into yourself, or it's like a
Okay.
permission slip to be you. So
Wow.
it gives you a lot of insight about your soul path, your life lesson, the gifts you bring in, the challenges you might have, kind of the low road and the high road of things,
Right.
how some of the transiting planets that are actually in the sky can impact the energy or themes going on in your life.
Okay.
And for me, it just really helped me understand myself, especially coming from a corporate business world and being drawn to the spiritual
Absolutely.
and giving myself permission to be what I came here to be.
Absolutely. And I love, when you're talking about your teacher and even what pulled you in. Because I am still so very logical. And so I love that. And I love, psychology too, and how the human brain works and how we process things. So I love the fact of putting those two things together.
Me too. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was really cool.
No, that
And
is. I love that.
it can be complicated when you look at a birth
Oh
chart. You're
gosh,
like,
yeah.
oh, how do you like interpret all of this? So
Right.
I actually do everything custom. So I look at everything myself. I
Okay.
don't use a software that gives me a report that I read back to you. So I actually have a lot of handwritten paper
Oh
here with a
boy.
bunch of notes.
Oh boy. All right. Lay it
So,
on us. Explain
all
to
right.
us what you found out and the process of going through that.
Yeah, so there's a few different things I'm going to walk through in a reading. So first of all, I want to establish some timing because astrology is all about timing and when things get activated in your chart.
Okay.
I'm going to start out with that. Then I'll dive into a little bit about your character. Then we'll look at what really stands out in your chart.
Okay.
If we have time, we'll talk a little bit about the transits of where the planets currently are in the sky and how that's impacting certain things in your chart.
Wow. All right.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get started first with the timing. So certain times of your life, there are certain planets that aspect things. So I'm
Okay.
curious what was going on for you around the age of 29. So that would have been,
Oof, that would have
I'm
been quite a
reading
few
notes.
years ago.
Yeah, I'm trying to read a note here to see if we can't share the chart, but that's okay.
Okay.
So around age 29, so it would have been like late 2011, 2012, anything in that area that was pretty significant
Yeah,
in shifting.
I was actually, we were preparing for the birth of our second child, which was actually a very difficult pregnancy. I almost lost my child several times.
Mm.
So it was very traumatic, just trying to prepare for that and make sure I was staying healthy and things were going okay so that my child could come into the world.
Oh, yeah, that is definitely a big thing going on,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And everything went well?
It did. Yes. Yes.
Okay, good. I'm going to talk more about your life lesson, but that planet that I was referring to is called Saturn. And
Okay.
Saturn is really the planet that talks about what your life lesson is. It's kind of the disciplinarian and helping us learn and
Wow. Okay.
learn what we're here to learn as a life lesson. So I'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit, but that was a big year for you
Yeah, it was.
for where Saturn was in your chart. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about your character. So you have a sun sign in Aries.
Yes.
You have your moon in Taurus, and you have your
Oh,
rising sign in Gemini.
okay.
So your Aries sign and sun is a fire sign. Your Taurus
Yes.
moon is an earth sign, and your rising sign in Gemini is an air sign. So you've got a
Okay.
good balance there. You don't have the water sign in there on the three major aspects of your kind of personality and character, but you do have some water in your chart. But let's talk a little bit about what each of these things mean
Yeah.
and how they play out in your life. So typically Aries is a sign of leadership, pioneer, passionate,
Right.
direct, full of energy. Is that something you can relate to for yourself?
Oh, yeah. I feel like I embody a lot of the typical, yes, go-getter aspects of Aries, but that cantankerous side, which I kind of, as I've gotten older, have gotten better at working through those things. Oh, wonderful. Deidre's got that up for us.
Yay!
Yay. Thank you, Miss Deidre. But yeah, I really do feel that a lot of the Aries aspects, as I have looked at those, I'm like, oh yeah, that does kind of fit me. Oh, that does fit me.
Great. Well, where it is at, I don't know if you look at the upper part of your chart, there looks like a red V
Okay.
up there. That is Aries, and you see a circle with a little circle in the middle of it. That's your sun sign. So where that falls in your chart, it's the 11th house, and that is like really about groups and communities. And with Aries sun in that aspect, it indicates that you would be more of a leader than a follower. Is that something you can relate to as well, as being more of wanting to be the leader, or not necessarily just following what everybody else does?
Yeah, and I wouldn't say I always want to be the leader, but it seems to be the way either things work out because nobody else really steps into that leadership role, or I find myself getting frustrated and then inadvertently, I don't always mean to, sometimes I step on toes, but inadvertently take over that leadership role.
Yeah. Your moon is in Taurus, which is, I don't know if you can see the moon on the left side there.
Okay.
A little bit, I don't have a pointer, so I can't point it out, but
Yeah.
it's on the left side above that middle line. There's like a little crescent moon. You can see the moon there. So that's your moon in Taurus. I'm a Taurus moon also, so I can relate to this one.
Okay.
Taurus moon, your moon sign is your emotional energy. So sun is more of your life force energy, moon is your emotional energy, and your rising sign is more of your soul expression.
Okay.
So your emotional energy in Taurus typically is enjoying comfort and beauty, doing things at your own pace, taking things slower. Security, Taurus is known as the sign of wanting to be secure, but they're also can be very grounded, emotionally grounded, the people that others turn to when there's a crisis.
Right. Yes.
Can you relate with those aspects of the Taurus moon?
I can. I almost call it the bartender effect, people go into the bar and they start chatting with the bartender. That seems to be, it doesn't really matter where I meet people, but a lot of times they'll connect and they start to tell me their life story. I definitely relate to the need for security, and making sure things are aligned appropriately. And that's a really big one for me, that if I don't feel things are aligned and secure, it really disgrounds me and kind of puts me in, an emotional state where usually I am more in control of my emotion, but that's something that really kind of frustrates me and grates on me. I do tend to, granted, not all the time. I'm not always completely emotionally balanced. None of us are, we have those peaks in our emotion. But I always joke with people because I can be that stable thing. And I always say, well, it's okay. I don't have feelings. My dad was a Marine. It's not that I don't have feelings, but I can put on different hats to adjust to things, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, you have a really interesting aspect too. I don't know. Can you see the little moon symbol there on the left?
I can.
Right above it, it looks like a K with a circle at the bottom, or a little P. So that is the aspect called Chiron, and it's your wounded healer.
Oh.
So it talks about the wound that you came into this life with. And, everyone has Chiron is in everybody's chart. It might be in a different sign, but it indicates the wound that we came in with. And as we heal that wound and we become the wounded healer, we transform that wound into empowerment.
Wow.
Your wounded healer is same degree as your moon. So it is literally sitting right on top of your emotional energy.
That makes so much sense.
The Taurus, your wounded healer in Taurus is all about security. So you've kind of got it double.
Yeah.
So it makes sense
a lot
that you
of
would
sense.
say that that's a big thing for you.
Yeah.
So I'm going to talk a little bit more about Chiron and your wounded healer, but since you mentioned it, I'm like, it makes perfect sense on why that security aspect is so strong for you.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's your moon sign as well as your wounded healer are both in Taurus, and they are the exact same degree. So it's really amplified for you. All right, well, let's go on to and I wanted to ask, because it's in your 12th house there. 12th house is more of the unseen, the spiritual realm. It can also be institutions. But I'm curious to know, how that plays out for you. Or, do you find security in spirituality and in the spiritual aspects of things, or how does the 12th house there play out for you?
I do. So I would say I am moving into feeling secure with my spirituality and my relationship. Before spirituality, I wouldn't say I was secure. It was more of that fear factor, right? More in religion versus the spirituality and that fear of being a good person. But I've noticed more confidence. I wouldn't call it security, but feeling more confident now with my spiritual connection.
Great. Well, your emotional energy, your moon sign, is in that house of the unseen and spirituality. It also can signify institutions, so it could be churches or bigger institutions as well.
Right.
So your rising sign, which is also called your ascendant, is your soul expression, and that is. Do you see where it says AC on the far left in the middle?
I do. Yes.
Okay, so that is your ascendant. Your rising sign or your soul expression is in Gemini. So Gemini, what we would consider the soul path of Gemini is being the divine messenger.
Wow.
So it's channeling the voice of spirit and speaking from the heart. So Gemini typically is more of the teacher, communicator, loves learning and networking and talking. Right. So as a soul expression, it's being that divine messenger.
Wow. That's a
big part of your soul path.
Yeah, this is so awesome because, when you look at astrology and when I look at any of this, I don't understand the symbols and the lines. And so it doesn't make sense to me. But there's so much validation. And I want to thank you for that in just seeing what you were able to connect and with where I'm feeling in alignment with my journey. That's just amazing to me.
That's how I thought when I could understand mine. I was like, oh, this makes so much sense. And now I see that, or I understand that. Or for me in my birth chart, I did not come in to have an easy life. So seeing that helped me to accept the life that I have as not being easy. So it really is refreshing to get that validation and kind of permission slip to be yourself, right?
Right. Yes.
All right. So on a deeper purpose for Gemini rising, it's like the deeper purpose is a communion. So recognizing and teaching interrelatedness of things. And I love that you're a host. Like you are a messenger, right?
Yeah.
That makes total sense. So between your Aries sun, your Taurus moon, and your Gemini rising, you have this beautiful divine design as a leader. So you got the Aries leadership, who is a steady grounding force with your Taurus moon. And then you have your Gemini divine messenger aspect of yourself there. So it's a beautiful, beautiful energy. And as I mentioned, your wounded healer is also in there. So I'm interested to talk about that a little bit more and see how that's playing out for you. So that Chiron, or the wounded healer aspect in Taurus, that wound that you're bringing in this lifetime is a deep insecurity. Yes. And oftentimes that can show up throughout life, especially, as you're younger, in your younger years, until you kind of transform that wound, is kind of searching for security outside of yourself or a sense of security. And being Taurus moon at the same time, it's amplified there. So being in your 12th house, that can also cause you to kind of retreat inside of yourself. Yeah. For safety and security as well.
Right. Yeah. I became my own. I didn't have it. And so I created it within myself, if that makes sense. But yeah, absolutely.
And the transformation of that wound is really learning that you have everything you need inside of you. And it's not the external that really gives you the sense of security. Obviously, we need external things as in the physical life, but the source of it is not external. And it's learning that. And that's a great way to help with transforming that wound.
Right.
And it's a part of your path. So just knowing when you are feeling those insecure feelings, that's a part of your wound and your path, and it gives you a greater awareness around it.
Absolutely.
And you can, reflect more on that. Like, how am I searching for security, or why am I feeling insecure?
Right.
And
yeah. And I
awareness
do
to
have a lot of, the feelings of insecurity have wavered in certain aspects and others not so much. But, like you said, as you're progressing into adulthood, going, those teen years, those middle school years are such awkward years of insecurity. But to me, reflecting on a time that for most people is already an insecure time, and how amplified for me it was during that time. No, this makes so much sense to things that I went through and feelings that I had. But then also, you had made the comment of, it's that realization of you have everything that you need. And that's been a theme that I have actually heard from several people over the past month and a half, is that exact statement. And so that just really, to me, hones in why that's coming in and where that's coming from.
Oh, that's awesome. That's just more reassurance, right?
Yes,
And hearing it over
absolutely.
and over again. Great. Well, I want to talk about a transit that's actually happening right now that's also impacting that Taurus moon and your wounded healer. So if you look just above that, you'll see a little red symbol that looks like it's got kind of wings on the side.
Yes.
That is Uranus, and that is the planet of eccentricity and rebelliousness and sudden changes. And that is aspecting your Taurus moon and your wounded healer. So that typically can be, it can be extreme, where there's some extreme changes that happen, or it can be softer, but typically that's helping you along with that transformation of that wound.
Right.
Also, because it is on your moon, it can affect you emotionally. So it can cause some emotional changes in your life, or changes that happen that can be more emotional. But you also, like, directly above that, you see a little green symbol and then a red, it looks like a number 4.
Yes.
That's the planet Jupiter, which is right behind it. And Jupiter is the good luck planet. There's a lot of, it's the joy planet, a lot of luck. So that can also soften some things there. But Uranus in that position right now, and it's been there for a little bit, actually, because it moves very slow.
Okay.
So you might have already been feeling this a little bit. But what that can signify for you are some psychological changes, especially sudden ones.
Right.
Have you had anything?
Yeah, I actually feel like I'm losing my mind, actually. It's, and I'm kind of at that age where I'm like, one minute I'll be happy and I'm feeling great, and then everybody's getting on my nerves, and I'm like, well, is it the change? Like, I'm a little too young for these super hormonal jumps. But I've seen it mostly like within my relationships, going from, and not just, friendships, my marriage, my relationship with my kids, to where I have to reflect and, why all of a sudden am I getting this reaction, or why am I getting frustrated, and I haven't been able to really pinpoint it to anything until now.
Yeah, and that kind of goes into your Saturn life lesson. Saturn for you in your birth chart, your life lesson is you're here to learn through relationships.
Oh gosh,
relationships.
That explains so much, Kim. So I'm gonna print this out and make my husband watch this show. I'm just saying, it explains so much.
So that's your life lesson, is to learn through relationships. And with Uranus impacting your emotional body right now and causing some more of those emotional changes for you.
Right.
It's just really a time to be patient with yourself and spend some more time, like, really exploring, how am I feeling? Why am I feeling that way? Knowing that my life lesson is to learn through relationships.
And I don't know if it's that Aries aspect, or that, but there's that vulnerability that doesn't make me feel secure, right? So when I'm sitting there reflecting on my emotions, that just makes me more tense.
Yeah, and you've got your Uranus impacting that wounded healer that's kind of prodding that insecurity there and saying, this is a great time to work on that.
Oh,
yeah.
That's not cool.
But when we know about it and we know this makes sense, this is
Right.
what's happening for me right now.
It does. And what's really validating, hi, Michael, to me is like these things where I can't pinpoint. I don't understand why these things are coming in. There's reasons, so that does help me feel like I'm not completely losing my mind. It is the waves, the changing of the energy and how they can influence everyday moments in our lives.
Yes. And with it being your moon, your emotional energy, it even feels a little harder because it's your emotions and you feel that, right?
Right. Absolutely.
For me, when I have Taurus moon also in a different placement, though, it's not in the same house as you. And when Uranus was on top of my moon, transiting my moon, is when my daughter and my mother both died.
Wow.
And it was the hardest transit of my life. It's not in that placement for you, but it can be pretty significant catalyst for change there. But in everything, nothing is bad. So I just look at it that way, as nothing in your chart is ever bad. Right. It's just knowing what those energies at play are. So when you do feel those changes and shifts, it makes more sense. And you can understand it and work with it a little bit more. But you do have Jupiter right behind there, and that is a positive transit. And that might also change your perspective a little bit on security as well. But with Jupiter, it expands everything.
Okay.
So being in the 12th house there too, watch for, overeating or things like that, because Jupiter.
It's funny you say that. Like, it is so funny. You must be intuitive, Kim. I've been doing so good. I lost weight. I've been eating healthy. And the last couple of days, like I even said to myself today, why are you eating this? You're not even hungry and you've been doing so good. And so it's just funny that you say that, because I literally this morning just had this conversation with myself while I was eating a frosted, sticky bun. Like, I don't even want this. Why am I eating this? Note to self, got it. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So as I mentioned, your Saturn life lessons, you're here to learn about relationships. Typically when you have Saturn in Libra, which is the relationship lesson, it's either avoiding relationships or there's a lot of lessons within them throughout your lifetime. So a lot of learning through them. And you have it in your 5th house, which is your house of creativity and self-expression. So I was interested to see kind of how that's playing out for you, because with your life lesson of learning through relationships being in the same house as self-expression, it's kind of a, balancing out how to express myself and, balance and learn through relationships. Is that a theme for you?
It is. I tend to, and I always say it's that fire sign in me where I get frustrated and I get to that breaking point, and then it just all comes out. I'm not always very tactful. But I have recently kind of moved to a point with some relationships where, and excuse my language, you just get done with the bullshit. Like, I'm just over it. And so recently it's been about more effectively communicating my boundaries, not just kind of, letting it all spill out, but articulating that and then holding people to that expectation of the boundary. I do really struggle with compromise. Compromise is hard for me. And and especially, yes, cut them cords, Michael. In my relationship with my husband, we are both very dominant personalities. And so sometimes there's that power struggle where I know I can compromise. I can, and it would make things so much easier, but I really struggle with that.
Yeah. Well, you've also got Mars right next to it. Mars is the planet of action.
Okay.
It's more of the aggressive energy, and you've got that right next to your
See,
life lesson of
I'm
learning
just
through
gonna frame this for my
relationships.
husband and be like, I'm sorry. You should have checked this before we got married.
Yeah, this is your divine design, but that Saturn aspect does invite you to learn through the relationship. So,
Right.
you know, the relationships can come and go through life, and then you have some that stay with you for life. So it's a good, you know, exercise to kind of look at your relationships and saying, what am I learning through these relationships? That's
Right.
part of what I'm here to do, is learn through relationships.
Yeah.
And sometimes you might have a relationships where the lesson is complete, and you bless that relationship for what you've learned through it.
Yes.
And, you know, all right, let's see what else. You've got a lot of energy in Libra actually in that 5th house. So if you look in the bottom, just to a little bit to the right, where you can see you've got several things going on there. That's your 5th house of self-expression and creativity.
Okay.
So a lot of energy in creativity and self-expression. Pisces is your midheaven sign, which is your career indicator.
Oh.
So Pisces in your career aspect typically indicates your career finds you. Can you
Yes.
relate to that?
I can relate to that. Actually, it's kind of funny that comes up, because I'm looking at going back to school, not, you know, something that at this age I really wanted to embark on. But the career kind of found me, and I'm good at it, and so it's like, oh, I could go back to school and get certified. I'm kind of good at this, and this is going to sound horrible, but it's something that I'm good at without really having to try to be good at, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
what
Like,
is it? If you don't mind sharing, what is
sure,
it?
it's in the public school system and working with kids, and so that just is something that seems to come naturally. And so it's like, oh, all right. Well, do I want to do this? But so many of the jobs that I have done just kind of fell on me, and I'm like, "Oh yeah. Yeah, I kind of like that. I'm going to try that for a while."
Well, for working in the public school system, I have to say your 5th house with all that Libra energy, 5th house is also kids.
Oh.
And your sun sign of Aries in the 11th house. 11th house is community.
Oh, sure.
So those two things work really well with working, being, you know, kind of being a leader in the public school system. So you've got a lot of energy in your 5th house, which can represent kids as well as creativity and self-expression. And your sun sign is in the community house.
Wow, very interesting. And that explains, you know, I originally, coming out of school, I have a criminal justice background. I'm, you know, a civil servant pretty much to my core. I feel like I'm here to serve and help others. So that it explains a lot of that feeling.
Yeah, awesome. So yeah, unless you're a dancer, we say Pisces midheaven is your career finds you. If you're a dancer, you kind of know that's your career.
Right.
With Pisces in midheaven. You've also got in the sky right now where Saturn, one second, where are we at? Yep, so your midheaven, if you see the MC at the very top where it says
Okay.
MC, there's a little red H looking thing next to it.
Right.
That's where Saturn actually is in the sky right now. So you have the planet of Saturn, which is learning through relationships, right on top of your career aspect. So what that tells me is there's a lot of learning opportunity through relationships in your career that's going to be happening. And Saturn will be there for a little bit. It kind of goes back and forth a little bit over that. So that's going to be, you know, be aware of that in your career aspect, that there's going to be some relationships that could be really good learning opportunities for you there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm seeing that as people are coming in right now, mentors are shifting. Different people are coming in and supporting and offering ideas and pathways to reach different goals. So that's pretty spot on.
Awesome. And then you've also got, if you look to the left of that red H at the very, very top, there's a red symbol there. That's Neptune. And that is right over Mercury, which is your mind and how your mind works.
Uh-oh.
So
now we're getting into the scary subsection here, guys.
You have Mercury in Pisces, which I do too, so I can relate with you here. Mercury in Pisces, so a mindset in Pisces can be a big dreamer, constantly, head in the clouds, all over the place thinking, can be very scattered. Can you relate to that?
I can. I can. And it's funny because there's times where it's like, I'm so practical, but then, like I will do something completely like, how did I not remember that? Or how did I forget this? And it's like, like putting your keys in the refrigerator kind of things, because my mind is in 85 different places. And then it's the idea of, right? Like I have all these ideas of how things should be. And I find myself getting frustrated when I can't get those things to that idea of.
Yeah. And then you have the Aries sun energy. So if you've got all these ideas and then your Aries energy just takes it and runs with it, it's almost like, I have the idea, I'm going to go do it. I have the idea, I'm just going to go do it. So that Gemini energy of your rising sign, being the divine messenger and connecting your heart to your words, kind of that pause in the middle of it there can be helpful with that. But you've got Neptune, the actual planet Neptune, and where it's at is right on top of your Pisces, your Mercury in Pisces. So that can make things even seem a little more scattered. It can also lead to a lot of high intuitiveness. So if you find yourself being intuitive and that even being more expanded right now, that would be the Neptune influence there. Would you consider yourself to be intuitive in general?
Yeah, I would. Yeah.
All right. Let's see. How are we doing on time? We're doing good?
Yeah, we got about 20 minutes left.
Okay. So you have an aspect, everybody has an aspect that's called the road to enlightenment or the North Node.
Okay.
And yours is in Cancer. And what that indicates is that your road to enlightenment, so kind of your shortcut to
there's shortcuts
evolving and growing. Yeah, there is. Isn't that good news?
Good to know. Pay attention, people. There's shortcuts.
Sometimes the shortcut is hard because you default to the opposite. So I'm interested to see how this plays out for you. But with your North Node in Cancer, that shortcut to enlightenment is learning to put yourself first and get in touch with
I'll never get there. That's a bad shortcut. Yep. I get it. Big detour sign.
It's putting yourself first in order to figure out your emotional body.
Oh, I don't like that at all, Kim. Yes, I know. And I struggle with that. I'm getting better at putting myself on the list. So I'm not first, but I've now made it to being on the list, right? And that's important. And I tell, as a life coach, all my clients, you have to put yourself on the list, put yourself in there. But I struggle with that. And then to put myself first, to work on emotional things, that just, sounds like not a whole lot of fun to me. Now I understand why you said shortcuts don't always work, because that's like
they're just not always fun to
practice. Right. Going down the road with the most haunted road and walking down it by yourself. I'll go the long way.
Yeah. Well, kind of the default to that is in Capricorn. And that is kind of more of the sacrificing yourself for the greater good, or putting yourself more into your work and focusing more on, it can be cutting off your feelings, but it's almost like disregarding your feelings and going and focusing on something else. Yeah. So that's your kind of your default. And
that's a very accurate description of where I'm at.
Yeah. And that can, cause some bumps in the road for you and not learning that, especially with that life lessons of learning through relationships. Relationships are probably going to be a big part of helping you learn that too.
Yes. Yeah.
But now you know it. So you can
now I know.
What is a fun way? What is the funnest way I can think of to put myself first and focus on my emotional body? So it doesn't necessarily mean you need to sit there and go, how am I feeling? It could be, it could think of something that allows you to get in touch with your emotions that you
Right.
enjoy doing. You know, it could be
Yeah.
something, you know, you have a lot of creative energy. It could be creating something like,
Yes.
how am
Yeah.
I feeling? I'm going to take that feeling and draw it or make something
Right.
with it, you know, use your creativity for it. All right. And then also using your Taurus moon to kind of get in touch with and ground the emotions there.
Yeah, that's a good thing to know, you know, because there is, you know, and especially like trauma. I'm very aware of the shadow work I need to do within that space. I'm just avoiding it. Which you really can't, and we know that, but I'm pretending I can avoid it. But knowing, you know, that there's tools built into my design that can allow me to ground and work through that is reassuring.
Yep. And, you know, Cancer is the mother energy. So also asking yourself, how can I mother myself? Like, what's a way I can mother myself?
Right.
All right. Talk about Venus. So Venus is the sign of like what you love and what you're drawn to. And your Venus is in Aquarius and your ninth house, which that indicates, you know, ninth house is spirituality. It's learning, like higher learning. It's traveling. It's the adventure.
Yeah.
And Aquarius is more of like forward thinking. So that can be, you know, a love of study, learning, collecting spiritual information, being unconventional. So are those things that you can relate to enjoying?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, even my husband is not much of a traveler or, you know, an adventurer, and that's okay. But I'm kind of, you know, our kids are getting older, and I get this antsiness, right? Like I can put it away for a while, but I feel it like churning now, where it's just I need adventure. I need something to feel almost like an adrenaline junkie, except I don't like roller coasters. But if that makes sense, like I need that adventure. I need to be able to, I like to discover and explore. And that's, I do like studying. I like looking at different religions. I like learning things because it's that exploring aspect of the inner connection that I really like.
Well, definitely nurture that, because that's where Venus is placed in your chart. That's exactly what that means is you love those things. So nurturing that, allowing yourself to nurture that. So you've also got another really highly intuitive indicator here. The planet Jupiter, when you were born, is in Scorpio, and that is a highly intuitive aspect in there that also kind of covers that intuitive side of Pisces that you have there. And then Uranus, as I said, is kind of that rebellious planet, and where it was in your chart when you were born is in Sagittarius, which is the traveler, the explorer, the adventurer, the truth teller. So the way that you would rebel is through your sense of honesty and your search for freedom and truth.
That is so, like, that I just have to say is super spot on, because I've long, like, if I didn't have kids, I'd probably live out of my truck and just drive around aimlessly. But also, I have this deep desire of truth. And it has kind of been a point of contention within my family, because there's some indiscretions, and there's family members that I want to find, because I know I have aunts or uncles that have not been acknowledged because it was with indiscretions. My family gets so frustrated at me for that. You know, it's, what does it matter? Well, to me, it's the truth. It's important. And that has been, I am the one that's, I don't care what the truth is, but let's be truthful. Like, that is a big pillar within my life.
Yeah. Well, now you've kind of got that affirmation.
Right. So now I can also show my family,
design.
You can't be mad at me. This is why I want the truth.
Yeah. All right. You've also got an aspect happening, and this is more in the current transit of things. That is in Sagittarius as well. Nothing is bad. So when you say, I'm like, no, it's not bad.
I mean, we're doing good. You haven't like told me I'm a sociopath yet or anything crazy. So we're doing good. We're doing good.
Everything is good. There's nothing bad in astrology. There's only, like I said, indicators of here's the high road, here's the low road. You have a choice on what you take. and just kind of understanding how things are designed for you. But as one of the transits happening right now with the moon, you might feel a shift. As you were saying, you want more of that adventure.
Right.
You have, I don't know if you see on the right-hand side, there looks like a red arrow.
Okay.
Under the DC. Just below that, there's a little green crescent moon.
Yes.
That aspect that's happening right now, or that transit that's coming into that area, is going to make that even stronger. So it's calling you to adventure. It's calling you to being more extroverted and more adventuresome. And that's going to be there for the next 2 years or so.
Uh-oh.
So you might find yourself being more extroverted, desiring to learn more, explore more,
right.
having more energy around that. So that's a transit that's going to be happening. It's like right there. So for the next 2 years, maybe a little longer, you might feel that shift happening there. All right. So I know that was kind of a lot of info.
It is a lot of
it's hard
info
to look at it.
No, and
I kind of have a quick recap for you on some of the bigger things.
Yeah, and I want to listen to your recap, but to me, I never really understood why people wanted to look at their birth chart. Like, what are you going to learn? How is this going to help you? And I really don't have a great understanding of astrology, or didn't until this. And I'm very appreciative of you taking the time and doing this, but how powerful is this knowledge? Like, it's easy, to dismiss, just like it is a lot of things that are holistic or in the metaphysical. But man, I see so much of value and just so much understanding of things that I've gone through or processed through, or parts of my personality where it's like, man, why am I like this? Like, there's times you get frustrated at yourself. Like, why can't I move past this? Why is this an issue? And it really just gave me a lot of insight. So I really appreciate that.
I'm so glad that it was helpful for you. That's how I felt about it too, when I learned this and had a better understanding of myself and my chart, and just giving myself permission to be me, all of it, and understanding myself better.
It is. Yeah. And I love how you say giving yourself that permission, because it's, as you gain the knowledge and understanding, it's like, okay, this is me. Why am I fighting this? How do I work with these aspects of myself to become my best self? So just, because we tend to fight things that we feel are our vulnerabilities or don't put us in great light, but accepting this is who you are made to be. Now it was all put here for a reason. Like you said, none of it is bad. So how do I take these parts of myself that frustrate me, that I don't quite understand, but get them to work for the benefit of myself? It's a big, undertaking. It's just kind of overwhelming. Like, as you get that validation and those things click into place. But wow, is it powerful? Like, everybody, I'm telling you, this is very powerful in understanding so much about yourself.
Yeah, so just some of the key takeaways that I summarized for you in that is, your soul purpose or expression is being that divine messenger and speaking from the heart. And that can play out in anything you do. It's not tied to a particular career or anything. Right. So thinking about it that way. And a messenger can be spoken word, written word. There's lots of ways to share messages. Your life lesson is learning through relationships. That wound, the wounded healer that we talked about, is that deep insecurity, and transforming that through knowing that you have everything inside of you. And then the road to enlightenment there, putting yourself first and focusing on your emotional body.
Yeah. Thank you. Wow. That's like 10 years of counseling in an hour session. Like, I'm just saying, guys, I'm just amazed. And when, so one thing I did notice, like looking at the chart, there's different lines, that kind of zigzag across the chart. What do those lines represent?
Yeah, so just to easily summarize it, the blue lines are more of the easier aspects of things. The
Okay.
red lines are more conflicting things.
Okay.
So they're just how planets would relate to each other in your chart.
Okay.
There might be some energy that supports each other and some that are kind of conflicting with each other. So that's what really those red and blue lines are, as well as the green dotted lines. Sometimes, depending on the shape of them, they have a bigger indication of how strong that influence is in
Okay,
your
that
chart.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Very
Inside of the
interesting.
circle are where all the planets were when you were born.
Okay.
Outside of the circle is where all the planets are today.
Wow.
So that way I can look and see where the planets are in the sky right now, where it's impacting your chart, and what it might be activating for you, or what kind of energy it's bringing in. So as some planets move faster than others, but I always like to have my chart done at least once a year. And I look at mine, every quarter to say what's coming up for me, or what are things that just to be aware of.
Right.
So I know
right.
what energy is coming.
I
and
love
I can
that.
work with it.
That I am blown away. And I really want to encourage, other people who may not have had this done to look into a session, because I have to tell you, and I know it sounds repetitive, but it was just so enlightening, because so many aspects, like key aspects that I have struggled with, to see where those fell in, and now to understand, because in some ways, we go through things and we go through hardships, but it also allows you to understand some of those trials and tribulations. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And they're even though they might not feel good, some of these trials and tribulations, they don't feel good.
Right.
But when you can see them in your chart as well, it helps give the validation there that this is a part of what you're here to learn and grow with.
Absolutely. And so if you guys, you've been watching, Kim, you have been so wonderful to offer everybody a coupon code if they want to book a session with you. And so in the comments, you guys can see where to go to book with Kim. The coupon code is Charlie, all capitals. And you want to enter that at checkout to save $25 off your astrology reading with Kim. I really appreciate you doing that for the viewers.
My pleasure.
To do that.
My pleasure.
And how would you say, when people are kind of on the fence, because not everybody, this was a huge benefit to sit down and for me to listen to my chart, but people that are on the fence of how can this help me? How can this benefit my life or give me guidance? What would you say to them?
Well, I would say if naturally you are a seeker and you want to discover more about yourself, this tool has been the biggest way for me to really get in touch with myself and learn more about myself and make some big decisions in my life. So I would say, if it resonates with you and you are seeking and into more of the self-discovery, or if you want to know more about your purpose and have more of that validation, I would definitely recommend it. Try it. If you don't like it, I've never had anyone not like an astrology chart reading. But I think there's a lot of, expectation out there of it's a horoscope or it's a this or a that. It's really, to me, like I feel so honored to be able to look at someone's chart and say, Stephanie, here's what I see in your chart about you, and get to know you as a person. And I'm so honored to do that. Like it feels like such a blessing for me to get to really get to know somebody that way.
It is. And I found it was interesting. And I think you're right. A lot of people speculate, well, it's no different than talking to a psychic or a horoscope reading, but understanding how all the signs, all the moons, the planets come into play. It's not just, well, you're in Aries and this is that. It because people are multifaceted, right? And so this gives us that 3D look into how we were put together. So that's very fascinating to me.
And every single change in a degree, every change in a planet, has a different feel and aspect to it. So it's almost like we're snowflakes. Like
It
I've never
is.
had
Yeah.
a reading that was exactly that. Like it's always different. There's always different things. So I love being able to tell someone, here's what your chart is saying. And for them to go, yes, that's me. And yes, I struggle with that. And yes, I love that. And for them to have that validation for themselves and
Absolutely.
honor themselves for who they are.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. I just can't tell you again how much I appreciate your time, you taking the time to do this for me, and just your energy, the fact that you're here to serve spirit and to help people. I truly appreciate that, Kim. And it's so much fun to talk to you. I love talking to you.
I love talking to you too. And this was so much fun. I'm so glad that we got to do this together. And thank you
Well,
for
thank
having me
you.
back.
Absolutely. We'll have to come up with some other topics because I'd love to have you back. I know the viewers love you. And so we are going to let Kim go. I know it is late in the show, but we are going to do one quick station break. And then when we come back, I'm just going to let you know what I have coming up in the weeks ahead before we let you go on to the next podcast. So thank you again so much, Kim. And we'll see everybody
Thank
in just a
you.
minute.
No matter the questions, Ellie Weisensell can help you find the answers. Ellie is a gifted intuitive and a natural energy healer, which she applies using the body code and emotion code healing systems, among others, to help you achieve balance for your best results. Are you looking for more clarity about which direction to follow with your life, health, or career? Let Ellie guide you. As a psychic, Ellie can provide clarity to the path you are on, so you may use your free will to change the direction of your life. Are you wanting to communicate with a loved one who's passed? As a certified psychic medium, Ellie Weisensell can connect you with your loved ones on the other side to facilitate healing or offer closure. To schedule your appointment with Ellie, look her up on Facebook at Ellie Weisensell Psychic Medium or email her at ellieweisensell@gmail.com. That's Ellie Weisensell, Weisensell.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Chat with Charlie. If you are just tuning in, you missed a fantastic show. We really had the opportunity to learn about astrology. It was something that I did not have a lot of knowledge on, and Kim was here, Kim Coots, and just so blessed to have her be willing to do my chart and to share that along with all of you to help us all kind of understand the healing and the knowledge that we can learn through astrology. Hi, Stephanie. Oh, thank you. Yes, please catch the replay. And hello to our friends across the pond. Thank you all so much for tuning in. In the links, if you're just tuning in, Kim offered a coupon code. If you are interested in getting an astrology chart done, you can save $25 by using the coupon code. And just go visit her at kimcoots.com/astrology reading. So she's a fantastic person. So really quick, I got to talk fast because we only got about 2 minutes left. Coming up next week, Ellie, you just saw her promo. She's going to be here next week for In the Mix. We're going to be looking at some maps, some interesting concepts that I just kind of came across. So remember, send us your weird news for In the Mix because that's what we talk about. But I think you're going to really be interested in some of the topics coming up next week. Tomorrow morning, I am leaving super early and I am headed to the Michigan Paracon. So for anybody in the area, I hope you're going to check that out. Come visit us. There's going to be so many fantastic vendors there. My lovely CAPS team members, they are going to be there. Soul and Synergy, a lot of amazing vendors. I believe there's 4 or 5 rooms of vendors and personalities. So come check it out. I'm very excited for that opportunity. And as always, I am so blessed to have you here to tune in every week, to let me be this platform to share this knowledge with you, because I guess as my chart said, I'm here to be a messenger. And so it just really does fulfill me to know that I'm able to reach you and share that knowledge. Stick around. There's a lot of great podcasts coming up on WLTK-DB. Check them out. We love them all. Remember, hop on over, vote on charts for your favorite podcast, and we'll see you all next week. Thank you.
The truth is here and now on WLTK-DB Talk Radio at WLTK-DB.com.